Good day everyone and welcome to the VCCircle Classroom show. I am Aliff Fazelbhoy from ALMT Legal, and today I will give you a brief introduction to directors of a company. What is a board of directors? It sounds very important to say I am a director in the company, but what exactly does that mean? You have all seen how a company comes into existence. It's an artificial person, it's created by natural persons, and it has capital owners, and now it wants to do business. But being an artificial person, a company cannot think on its own, it cannot do things on its own. So it needs to be controlled by individuals. Just like a car needs a driver, a company needs people to manage it. And these people are known as directors. They give direction to a company and decide how the company will function. They are called, collectively these people are called the board of directors. Now in a private company you need at least 2 directors, and in a public company 3 directors. So the 4 main issues here are why, who, how and what. Why do you need a board of directors? I've explained to you, as you know, you need people to direct the company. Who are the board of directors? Now, board of directors can only be individuals. In some countries, board members can even be other companies, but in India that's not the case. It can only be individuals. The first directors are the ones who are the promoters, the ones who have agreed to set up the company, to be the first shareholders. They automatically become the first directors as well. Now directors can keep changing. They can resign, new directors can be appointed, always subject to the minimum and maximum caps that have been prescribed. Who can be directors? As I said, individuals. They have to be minimum age of majority, and no other specific restrictions on who can be directors. Interesting concept is that in India, even foreigners can be directors in a company. There's no restriction that there has to be a minimum, 1 or 2 Indian citizens or residents. All directors at the moment can be all foreigners. Also, if a foreign company sets up in India. There is a proposal to change this, but at the moment that's not the case. How do you get appointed? How do you become a director? There are many ways. The first directors are the subscribers to the memorandum. After that, if you want to become a director, you could be elected as a director by the owners of the company, that's the shareholders. That's one way. Or the existing directors can appoint an additional director. They say, okay, 2 of us can't manage, we need someone else. They can appoint somebody who also becomes a director together with them. The additional director's appointment, however, has to be confirmed by the shareholders, who are the real owners of the company. You can have alternate directors, like if I am not able to attend a meeting or I am away for some time, I can appoint an alternate subject to certain formalities. There are also nominee directors sometimes, where you have given, like you've taken a loan from a bank, for example. So the bank will say, I'll give you a loan provided you allow me to appoint my person on the board, so he knows how the company is being managed. And these are kind of nominee directors. What do directors do? They run the company, they operate the company. And as per, now we look at section 291 is a very important section of the Companies Act, which says that the board of directors can do everything that the owners can do, but what they can do is always subject to approval of the owners in certain cases, and the owners or the shareholders can always override the directors if they feel the directors are not running the company properly. Okay, I'll quickly tell you about nominee directors, because that's often a concept that people have in their mind, that if I have certain number of shares, then I have to have certain directors. It's not mandatory for any shareholder, however much you own, to nominate himself or somebody on his behalf to be a director. though he can if there's an agreement to that effect between him and the company. Directors are usually appointed if nothing else is stated in the articles of association of the company or in any agreement. They are appointed by the shareholders or the members of the company collectively. So if majority of the shareholders decide to appoint Mr. ABC as director, then say a person who even has 49% shares, he's in the minority, he may get no director at all. So it's important then to have agreements. If you want to have your director and you have like 20-30% share in the company, you have an agreement with the company which you record in the company's articles that Mr. A, who has 20% shares, will at all times be allowed to appoint one person as director or to be a director himself. There's also certain directors are defined in some cases by their duties. Now you could have managing or a whole-time director who is basically in charge of the entire day-to-day affairs of the company and is entrusted with certain powers by the board to manage the company. Because every decision you can't go, like if there's a board of 5 directors, you can't expect all 5 of them to sit and debate every single matter. So you have a concept of a managing or a whole-time director. And again, in certain companies, if you're on a small size, you don't need a managing director. But if you're of a certain size, if your capital exceeds the certain limits, or if you're a public company with a certain shareholding, then you do need managing directors. Otherwise, it's not mandatory to have one. Executive directors, it's not a defined term in the Companies Act, but it's again a very popularly used term, executive and non-executive directors. Basically, an executive director is one who actually spends a lot of time working in and for the company. He's actually hands-on involved in the business. A non-executive director can generally be just, he's there in board meetings, he knows what's happening, he's generally aware of things and looks after, certain little bits, or he's like sometimes even just a figurehead. Like I may have 10%, I say I want to be a director, so I get certain information on the company, but I may not be full-time involved in the day-to-day management of the company. So I would then be a non-executive director. Duties of directors. Basically, they manage the company. Now they are in a position of power. So one of the key aspects is they have fiduciary duties. They are like trustees of the shareholders, of the company, of the business, because ultimately they have the power to run the company. Again, a misconception is, suppose I am a shareholder and I say I nominate you to be a director on my behalf. Now your duty is first to the company and second to me as a shareholder. Your first duty is always to the company. So if I'm a shareholder, say with 40%, and I tell you, Mr. X, please be a director on my behalf, and the company decides, thinking about doing a business. Now, I may want the company to buy products from my company, but you as a director have to go around and see, is this the right place to buy from? Just because, I nominated you doesn't mean the company should buy from me. There may be cheaper products or better products available elsewhere. So the duties of a director is always first to the company and then only to the shareholders who have nominated him. This is again a very big misconception that directors owe duties to the shareholder. That's not, it is the case, but the first duty is to the company and second to the shareholders. Okay, just before we end, one quick word on independent directors. Again, a term often used but not quite understood. Normally, the owners of the company, that's the shareholders, will appoint directors, persons who they know to be directors to run the company. But especially in public companies, or especially when there are outside investors who are pure investors in the company, they would want, certain people who are unbiased or unlinked to, say, the promoters of the company or the major shareholders, to make sure the company is run properly. And these people are known as independent directors. especially in listed companies like the SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, mandates that certain percentage of the board must be independent, and they play a very vital role. They have to be truly independent. They cannot have any interest, like they cannot be large shareholders in the company. They cannot have an interest in companies with which this company does business, etc. And they act as sort of balancing acts, if between two groups of shareholders, or they act as professionals, unbiased people to make sure that the company runs efficiently and smoothly. That's basically what is an independent director. They have all the powers, duties, obligations, liabilities as much as any other directors. It's just that they are not aligned to a particular group of shareholders or a particular interest in the company. I'll sign off now. Hope you've got a good idea on what is a board of directors, who can be directors, how they are appointed, what are the duties, what is managing executive, non-executive, independent directors. It's a very, very vast topic, and I hope in these 5-7 minutes you've got a fair idea of what all this means. Thank you.